The Rebel Capitalist Show.
What are you doing right now to prepare for what you see coming in the future, as far as your family and your wife? You know, obviously you've moved to a smaller place in Utah. I'm not sure how far away you are from the city. I don't know if you're doing any type of if you're self-sustaining out there as far as solar, or what type of action steps are you taking?
I'm extreme. I've got at least 6 months of food in my house, freeze-dried foods in my house. My wife's grandma lives down the street, and we have over 5,000 gallons of water. We have over a year's worth of food. Because I'm concerned. I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm concerned about a power grid shutdown. Let's hope that these people aren't as crazy as I think they are. I hope I'm wrong about that. So those types of things. I have a large percentage of my net worth in physical silver and physical gold. More importantly than anything. Oh, and I'm thinking about leaving the country. I mean, I know that you have a passport in like St. Lucia or something like that. I mean,
I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
you're thinking about it. Okay,
yeah,
so
I've got my residency visa in Colombia, so I'm making steps to get a second passport, but definitely need to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I'm interviewing your boy Andrew Henderson in a couple hours, so I'm interested in that.
Tell my
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I will at 4. So I'm pretty pumped about that because I didn't think about it until my net worth got, a little bit bigger to consider being able to make the move and pay for everything. But I am concerned about here. I mean, Uruguay's where I'm looking at. Their GDP was unaffected during the Great Depression. They were largely unaffected during World War II. 90% of everything consumed comes from within the country. They only import and export 10%. Huge aquifers. There's 3 times more cattle than people. Factory farming's illegal. So there's a lot of interesting things about this. Where Doug Casey has a 1,000-acre ranch. So I've been spending a lot of time researching, and I'm intending to go down there, check it out, at least maybe get a second home somewhere like that, like you've done in a residency. And then on top of that, business. I think that I own Bitcoin and all that gold and all that crap too, but I think that, in my opinion, and I'm just a 29-year-old guy. I've done pretty well. I'm no George Gammon in my success, but
you're way ahead of where I was at 29.
I've done pretty well. And the thing that I retired my wife at 25 years old, and the way that I was able to do that was through business. And we're taught not to have businesses. And we're so conditioned with an old business philosophy, because when I say that, someone says, well, easy for you to say, they're locking down businesses. Well, then we need the internet. We need additional sources of income, ones that are uncancelable, or if they are cancelable, we need multiple of them. And more than anything, we need to be increasing our income ceiling, right? Because I think you published the data on the average income hasn't went up in forever, and so we need to be increasing our income, to exceed inflation. We need more money because money's freedom. And sometimes people will say, well, happiness is more important. And that's true, but you also have a total freaking quasi-communist system that's taking over your life. And the only way you can have your freedom is money. Right. And so I think having businesses and developing additional sources of businesses is like the number one ninja Jedi moves that we can make against the system. And then of course, as you're an expert on, there's all these tax things and real estate things you could do once you have more capital from your businesses. So that better than me, but I always challenge people to build a new source of income this year. Make that your goal, at least one new source of income, especially a scalable one. And so that's kind of my personal thing. I built this new business with the I Love Prosperity channel. That's my finance channel. So I built that, and that's turned into something really good and solid. And then, the rest of the things on food storage, gold, silver, and we're really looking strongly at leaving the country. And that's kind of my personal philosophies. I'm concerned about my daughter growing up in America and the world in general. And so that's why I'm just trying to weigh all my options.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to go back to what you're saying about starting a business or a side hustle even if you've got a 9 to 5 job, just doing something to where you're not as dependent on the system. You might still be dependent on the internet, but at least you got some diversity, let's say. A lot of people watching this are going to sit there and think to themselves, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. I keep hearing that. What's my downside? I know it's some extra work, but I really need to do that. Out of 100 people that hear that, maybe one, if that, will take action. And I'd really like you to expand on this idea of visualization. And I think that's, to me, that's a key component. And tell me if I'm wrong, because I haven't studied this stuff like you have. But to me, that's a key component in being able to get to from where you are today to where you want to be. Regardless of whether it's starting a business, whether it's losing weight, whether it's making money, investing. And I know that kind of sounds a little woo-woo, but let me just, for the people watching, let me give an example. When I first started in business and first started in sales, I didn't know anything about it. I thought, you know what, when I go into my next closing, when I'm meeting a big client, let's say, and we're trying to close this big account, before I step in the room, I'm going to take a minute or two and almost meditate, but I'm going to visualize that me saying everything that I need to say, me nailing all of their questions or rebuttals. I'm going to visualize us shaking on the deal. I'm going to visualize how much they're going to agree to. Is it going to be $1 million deal or whatever it is? And I noticed that when I started doing that, my ability to sell just went through the roof. And so I'm like, you know what, I'll bet you that the body can't perform what the mind can't conceptualize, or the body can only perform what the mind can conceptualize. So, a lot of people hear the self-help stuff and say, oh, it's just kind of woo-woo nonsense. But if you think about why it works, to me, it makes a lot of sense. So help me. Am I right there, or am I just way off track?
That's what I believe. I mean, I've got really into it. If you really want to understand the power of psychology and the mind, there's a 10-part docuseries on YouTube on Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who learned all this about the mind and the subconscious and brought all the banks together and created modern PR and, got women to believe that if they smoked cigarettes, they were an individual and all that crap. And so, first of all, it's not woo-woo. So we now know through, this is what I'm into, personal development, neuroplasticity. So we know that the brain actually gets wired in certain ways. Every time you have an emotion, every time you have a thought, you activate cells in your brain. And there's something in neuroscience called Hebb's law. And that says that nerve cells that fire together wire together. So that based off of our dominant emotions, what this is essentially saying, because all your emotions it's an electromagnetic frequency that shoots through your nervous system. That's all it is. And so we activate cells in our brain. Our brain gets wired together. And this is why people spend their whole lives depressed or their whole lives very, like no confidence. And because they were wired like that, they're little and their brain plays it out there their whole life, right? And so 95% of your whole life is subconscious. And that's why everything you do now, you succeed at. You did in real estate, now you do it in this. Now you're just fucking wired to succeed. It's been built into you. And for most of us, it's not. I believe it's nefarious. I believe that's more than the financial system. It's ultimately about controlling us in these ways. Well, 95% of your life is subconscious, and the word sub means below. So that means below conscious. So 95% of our whole life is below the level of conscious. And that's nuts, because it explains a lot of things. The way you can drive down the street and not pay attention and forget where you drove, but you still got there. Everything is subconscious. All the body is an extension of the subconscious. That's why Kobe Bryant would replay or visualize entire games in his head. And so you can feel something that isn't real. And so, that's why all the most successful people in the world visualize. And it's why Steve Jobs says the world was built by people no smarter than you. And when you realize it, you can mold it, shape it, and change it however you want. So if you can build a picture in your mind, which is what I did when I dropped out of college and I read all this, instead of dismissing it, I said, why don't I suspend my disbelief and actually try this? If you can really recreate your mind and you can be whoever you want to be in life. Why don't I at least try instead of just be this closed-minded idiot like I was my whole life? And so I built a picture in my mind to become a multimillionaire in my 20s and be a successful author and, have my main YouTube channel be this big channel and have millions of people, my work reaching millions of people. And I was 21. I dropped out of college. I failed junior English class in high school, but I made I made a hypnosis for myself. And, and if you get more into declassified CIA documents, they know all this stuff. There's all types of declassified documents that the CIA's done on mind control and how consciousness creates reality. And so it's pretty interesting stuff. And so I created a hypnosis and I built this picture of myself being, a multimillionaire in my 20s and then achieving all these things that everyone said I was a moron and go back to school and your hair's too long, you look like an idiot. And I built this in my mind. And if you get emotionally involved with a picture in your mind, you activate emotions. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real, so you still fire nerve cells in your brain. If you make it a daily habit, it's the same thing as building a callus, and your brain starts to rewire itself. And you can change your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. But then also on a more elementary, like everyday type of level, you talked about sales and stuff. It's interesting in sales, right? They're like, make sure that you cross your left leg to model them so they feel comfortable, and make sure your posture is good. All that stuff is little silly stuff about trying to get on a subconscious wavelength or subconscious rapport with someone. And when you would go get all fired up before, you'd go into those sales things and you'd freaking close it because unconsciously they don't know what's happening. 95% of your life is subconscious. So 95% of all the decisions you make is subconscious. They're picking up on your subconscious, and that's the feeling where they're like, I don't want to do business with George. I don't know why. Or you go in and you say double your normal fees and you're confident. They're like, all right, fuck yeah, let's do it. That's the subconscious exchange that happens as well. And so I think if you look at most people, dude, all the millionaires that they believe they can do it. In the most simplest way, they're the ones that have clearly defined goals that say, I'm going to grow my net worth to 100 million. It. And then all the ones that are like, dude, it doesn't work. They're the ones that are like $9,000 in credit card debt, posting comments online and saying, you idiots, you're wasting your time. There's so much psychology and neuroscience that we now know. Your mind is more powerful than you can imagine. And, I believe whatever you can put in your mind, you can hold in your hand. That's what I believe.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it.